And the killings in Bucha have come to light after Russian forces withdrew from the area. And Russia has pulled back because it says it's moving on to a new phase of the war to focus on the regions of Donetsk and Lugansk. Part of that territory has been held by pro-Russian separatists since 2014. The Ukrainian military also says the Kremlin is preparing a new offensive there.
The main efforts of the enemy are focused on preparing for an offensive operation, the purpose of which is to establish full control over the territory of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. The threat of the use of sea, air and land-based missiles by the enemy continues to persist. The occupiers are targeting our defensive installations, logistics infrastructure and residential areas of cities.
For more, let's bring in John Spencer. He's a retired U.S. Army major and an expert on urban warfare. He joins us from Colorado Springs. Mr. Spencer, thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Let's start with what is coming to light out of Bucha. What do you make of the killings of civilians there?
Yeah, to be frank, I'm still shaken from what I'm seeing there. I've been in war. I've studied war. Don't let somebody tell you this is just what happens in war. I don't even think war crimes, I mean, it is war crimes under the law of war that clearly Russia doesn't follow, but this type of intimate killing, the tying of civilians' hands behind their back and shooting them in the head, as an old soldier, I know that's a very intimate, evil, and not a rogue unit. So don't let people tell you this is just what happens, this is just what Russia does. This is genocide.
And that's what Ukrainian officials have been saying, and they are concerned that we're going to be hearing more of such atrocities in other areas. Let's move on to the military aspect of this war now. The Russian military, one of the largest on earth, they have the numbers, but what kind of challenges have they faced when it comes to urban warfare?
So they've been taught the lesson that most of us have known for a long time, is that the defender has the advantage. And if you don't have the capability to rapidly get into urban areas before they start defending it, then you'll pay a giant price or just fail. And that's what Russia did, to be clear, in Kyiv. They failed to achieve their objective, which is rapidly get into Kyiv and take out the government. So they tried a couple different plans to do that. They're not capable of doing any of them. So now they're refocusing on trying to achieve a different objective just so they can say they won something.
Talk to us about that main military objective. On February 24th, Moscow's goal was to take Kyiv quickly, as you said. That would have been their goal. They thought they could do it in 3 days. It hasn't happened. We're about to enter the 7th week of the war now. Why were they not able to take the capital?
Right. Well, I mean, clearly they weren't capable because they're not the big army that we thought they were, as in that, yeah, they're big in numbers, but not capable. So they just failed to get there, to get into position, to even hold like the airfield that we saw in Hostomel. And then once they failed, every day that the Ukrainians didn't lose, they were winning and preparing to defend. So putting up blocks and barricades and roadblocks to stop from sneaking into the city. There was a credible military force. So this wasn't just all Ukrainian citizens, but it was the combined power of the Ukrainian military and the territorial defense and the civilians to start blocking, taking out the bridges, attacking anybody who's trying to get into position, which we saw that as it went on. So really we didn't see an urban fight like what we're seeing in Mariupol that I study as much, because they closed the gates, is the analogy that I use. So they closed the gates to Kyiv, continued to contest the air, which, to be frank, is still vital to their survival. It was vital to their survival in Kyiv had they not been able to contest the airs and prevent the Russians from moving around and firing helicopter missiles and doing all that you can do from the air. So that's where they closed the gates to the castle, the fortress that is Kyiv.
The political seat. What's the Russian strategy now when they say that they're going to focus on the Donbass?
Yeah, their strategy now is to take these defeated, broken apart, high casualty units. Some of them will be pulled back into Russia and Belarus and try to be refitted. And then they're moving some directly over to the Donbass, right, where there's been a war even before 2014 for the eastern part of Ukraine. So they completely given up on what they entered the war to do. And now they're going to try to encircle the forces that are in the Donbass and Luhansk and Donetsk, and then either overtake them or just encircle them and say, okay, this is ours, even though there's people inside of it, trying to get any type of a win out of their failed, miserably inept military operation, illegal invasion into Ukraine.
Major, we can't talk about Russia's military failures in Ukraine without talking about Ukrainian resistance. You said very early on in this full-scale invasion that Ukraine has a real chance militarily despite being outnumbered and outgunned. What is your assessment now?
Yeah, I still think it's true. I mean, yeah, we're in a very dangerous situation, right? So if the Russians somehow pull off, right? So really, in all war, you want your enemy to make more mistakes than you do, and you capitalize on those. But they still don't have the thing that we know is the most critical thing in war. It's not the size of your military. It's not even the weapons. It's the will to fight in your soldiers, the morale, motivation, and cohesion. The Russians didn't ever have that. They didn't believe in what they were doing, in their cause. Clearly, some of them have evil in their minds and created, caused great horrors. But the Ukrainian military and the citizens that are fighting along with them and the territorial defense have what we know is vital in a battle like this. So there's no certainties on what's going to happen, because even if the Ukrainians were outnumbered, in some of these locations they're not, to be clear. They've been fighting for a long time in the Donbass, and those are some of the strongest Ukrainian military forces that Ukraine has. But they have what the Russians don't, which is the will to fight. And even the citizens, look at Mariupol. That's amazing that they're still fighting, still holding out after weeks of siege and no water, no food, no nothing.
John Spencer, an urban warfare specialist with the Madison Policy Forum. Thank you very much for your time and for your insights.
Thank you.